what does this mean for Zynga?
Oh, well, a little more distance certainly between Zynga and Facebook. But, you know, the idea of $2.5 million ads on Facebook seems like a pretty good money-making opportunity. In the case of this development with Facebook, it's not as clear. But here's the context and why Facebook's sort of indirectly getting into the games business. First of all, the games revenue that they generate, a much smaller piece of the overall pie than the advertising dollars. Here's maybe a way to drum up some potential revenue from some of the early games that find strength through Facebook going forward. And also this does play well into the mobile strategy that Facebook has been so focused on, since most of the social games these days are certainly meant for mobile users. And so with the stock trading right about where it was when it went public, this is kind of the potential excitement story tied to mobile. But the challenges that Facebook could face with this have to do with what exactly the young game developers will be getting out of this relationship. We already know that if you're buying, say, virtual goods and social games through Facebook, Facebook takes a big cut, upwards of 30%. So it's, to some, almost like you're saying, well, we already take that big cut. Now we might be indirectly going into business with you, and that might mean us taking a bigger cut, potentially a big cash grab, if the game developers are on board with the idea. Emily?
Let's talk about the developers, John. I looked at the list. You know, they are smaller, up-and-coming, less established game developers, if you will. Why target those kinds of developers?
I mean, if you think of how quickly the game industry is changing with social games, whether it's companies like Electronic Arts that are shifting their business, or some of the young companies that got big very quickly. I mean, we talk a lot about companies like Gree and King and Kabam and Supercell. A lot of these players have been successful by developing apps for iOS and Android and then rolling them out that way, as opposed to being tied directly to the Facebook platform. Facebook's trying to make this argument that sometimes you don't get as much love if you're in a sea of apps on a phone, and so maybe there's an opportunity in being closer to us. But it goes back to that question, do you want to be tied so closely to Facebook? We saw what happened to Zynga as a result and where it is now in trying to play this catch-up game in mobile.